Actually, the assignment that I would like us to start with is this one here, the sofa and rug. My focus is going to be, first of all, on this 3-seat sofa. Based on the dimensions of the 3-seat sofa, I will then show you how to copy and edit so that you can generate the 2-seat sofa. And then putting in this end table that's round is straightforward enough. Being able to put this rug, I can show you how to do that, but I'd like you to maybe think about a design you want to come up with. And then this one here, I just want to show you how you can use the polar array command for that one. So this is the drawing we'll begin with, but before we get started, I want to mention real quick, a little something on file management. And I am opening up my window here. And I basically want to show you that I have in my documents folder, I have an HWC folder here, and I'm going to double click it. Inside of this folder, I have individual folders for the different classes that I teach. So I highly recommend that on your computer, and for those of you using the virtual machine, you can set this up and it's fine. It'll save it there. Go ahead and create an HWC folder, and then make an ARC-170 folder inside of that so you can save your files here. And then eventually you will upload these to Google Drive to share with me so I can verify that they've been done properly. Keep that in mind. And then as you continue with other courses, you already have the folder there. You just construct the folder for it and you should be all set. So we can go ahead and begin. All right. I'm going to toggle back and forth between this example here that has the dimensions and my AutoCAD screen. So I'm back to AutoCAD now, and I'm ready to begin my file. What to do first? Go to New and go to the dropdown and select the template. If you do not see the template listed here, go ahead and click on Browse Templates. And then from the Select Template window, go ahead and select the AutoCAD drawing template and click Open. The next step is to format units. We were practicing before and it didn't matter, and we were looking at decimal values. But now we want to construct an architectural drawing and we need to use feet and inches. So you need to type units. So I'm going to type units on my screen and then enter. I see my drawing units window. I need you to change the length type from decimal to architectural. Change the precision from 1/16 to 1/32 of an inch. And that means that when you draw and when you measure objects, they're going to show you the precision up to 1/32 of an inch. For the angle, keep decimal degrees. For the precision, change that to the nearest hundredth, so 0.00. That is all you need to do here. Nothing to do with the insertion scale. You look at the sample output, it is now showing me feet and inches. You don't need to do anything with the lighting. And then when you're all set, click OK. Now that we have formatted the units, you'll see down in my drawing aids and my coordinates, it is now showing feet and inches. The next thing to do is save this file as, so giving it a file name. So I will go to my application button, click on it, click on save as, and I'd like to save this as a drawing. So I click on drawing. It's taking me to my documents folder. I have an HWC folder. I'm going to double click it. I have an Architecture 170 folder. I'm going to double click that. I have an old drawing sitting in there, and that's fine. What I'll do now is come down to my file name, click in there one time and provide the file name. And remember, every file will start with your first initial last name. So first initial last name, and please use your first initial last name, not mine. First initial last name space. And this drawing is called Sofa and Rug. So type in sofa and rug. So if I go back to the example, right, that's the file name, sofa and rug, and that's what we are going to name it here. So first initial last name, sofa and rug. Go ahead and click save. When you click that, you'll see up in the tab, it gives the name, first initial last name, sofa and rug. And I'm ready to begin. What I'll do now is just take my cursor to the middle of the screen, zoom out, and then I want to pan so that my UCS icon is closer to the middle of the screen, like this. And now what I'm going to do is back to my drawing. I'm going to take a look at that. And you could see that the sofa, the 3-seat sofa, the overall dimensions, 3 feet wide down here by 6 foot 2 inches long or deep. So I'm going to begin by drawing the 4 lines that represent the boundary of this piece of furniture. So 3 feet by 6 foot 2. So I'll go back to my AutoCAD drawing and I begin by constructing the first line. So I go to the Home tab, Draw Panel, and I click on Line. When I click on Line, it's asking me to specify the first point. And if you notice on the drawing that I provided you, you'll see where it says to begin this drawing right here where my X and Y are equal to 0. That's my point of origin. So I want to make sure that the line begins at 0, 0. So when I go back to my AutoCAD drawing, it's asking me to specify that first point, and I'm going to type in the values. So I'm simply going to type 0, comma, 0. I'm being explicit here and indicating to AutoCAD that I want that first point to begin at 0, 0. So now I enter. And it guarantees me that the first endpoint of this line is at that point of origin, 0, 0. The next thing I want to do is draw the line 3 feet in length. And I want to make sure that it is perfectly straight. So I will go down to my drawing aids and I will toggle my ortho mode on by clicking on the icon. When I click on the icon, it turns blue. That means it's active. That means ortho is on. And as I move my cursor, you'll see that it moves horizontally no matter where I place my cursor. Now, if I come up here, now it will go vertical, but it is locked in to either a perfectly vertical line or perfectly horizontal line. So I'm going to start with my horizontal line here first. And you notice as I move my cursor along, it's updating the distance. And when that distance appears to me in the window there and it's highlighted, that means I can go ahead and type in the value. So I want to make sure that this is exactly 3 feet in length. So I type in 3, and I make sure to use my apostrophe to indicate that it's 3 feet in length. If you do not do this, it's going to draw a line that's 3 inches, and that's going to be detrimental to what you're trying to accomplish. So make sure it is a 3-foot line. So I type in 3 feet and I enter. And you'll notice that it almost falls off the screen. Maybe if on your screen you didn't zoom out far enough, it probably did fall off. Don't worry about that. All you need to do is enter. It terminates the command. And you can go ahead and pan the drawing and zoom the drawing so that it is on screen like mine. And now we can begin the next line. So I go back to my example. And the next line I'd like to draw is the one that is 6 feet 2 inches in length. And it will also begin at 0, 0. So I go back to my AutoCAD drawing. And I'd like to draw another line. Now remember, if I right click, I can go ahead and repeat the line command from here. I don't have to go back to the icon. So I can click on repeat line. Asks me to specify the first point. I'll go ahead and type 0, 0, even though there's another way of doing it, and I'll show that to you later. So I want you to practice this. So go ahead and type in 0, 0 and enter. And then take your cursor so that it is following that green axis, which is our y-axis, and just take it up. You don't need to take it all the way up. You don't need to approximate that 6 foot 2 inch length. As long as it's going in that direction and you have ortho on, all you need to do now is type in 6 feet 2, and then the quotes for inches. 6 feet 2 inches, no space in between. Just like that, 6 feet 2 inches, and enter. And you'll see how mine falls off screen. And that's okay. I'm going to enter to terminate the command. And now what I'm going to do is zoom out and pan this down until I see that entire line on my screen like this. You also have the option of zooming to the extents of your drawing. So I can type Z, enter, E, enter. And that shows me the extents. And then all I have to do is roll my wheel mouse down one time, and I get the same results. All right, with the 2 lines in there, let's go back to our example right here. And the next thing I'd like to do is basically complete my outline of the sofa. So I need to construct 2 more lines, but I'd like to introduce some more commands, start to really get into AutoCAD here. So let me go back to AutoCAD. And in AutoCAD, we try to copy as much as we can and then edit. There's no need for me to draw another line. I can simply copy one of the existing lines. So what I'd like to do is copy this line right here over 3 feet this way. And now I'd like to take advantage of my object snaps. So I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm going to come over here to my drawing aids. And right here where it says object snaps, I'm going to click on the down arrow next to it. And first of all, I want all of you to make sure that you have, at the very least, endpoint, midpoint, and intersection checked on. Right, you check them on basically by clicking on them. So if I wanted to, let's say, turn on perpendicular, I would click on it, but I don't want that, so I'm going to turn that off. So intersection, midpoint, endpoint. Make sure you have those. And mine are already set. So the next thing I'd like to do is go ahead and just simply click on the icon itself like this to turn that on. So what this means, let me go back in here, is that I now have 3 running object snaps: endpoint, midpoint, intersection. And every time I go to draw or modify my drawing, it is going to identify these endpoints, midpoints, and intersections for me. All right, we'll go back to my drawing, and I will proceed to make a copy of the line. So from my Home tab, Modify Panel, I come over here to Copy. That tells me that it's going to make a copy of an object from one location to another. So I click on Copy, and then I hover my cursor right here on the drawing screen, and it says Select Objects. I only want to select one object, and it is this line. So I'm going to click, or actually hover over it and see how it highlights. And now that it's highlighted, I can go ahead and click on it. So that is now selected. And if you look down at the command line, it says you have one object selected, right? One found. All right, that's it. AutoCAD gets stuck in this loop here, wanting me to select additional objects. And I will eventually be selecting more than one, but for now, this is it. And I ask you to, in your mind, just say, do I want to select any more objects? And if the answer is no, then enter. So go ahead and enter now. And once you enter, it advances us to the next step. And it's telling us to specify the base point. So for the base point, I'm going to come down here. And notice how if I just hover, it actually has this magnetic effect. And when I hover, it snaps to that endpoint. Once I see that happening, and by the way, it's a square, it's the green square there, I go ahead and click one time because that's going to be my base point. So click. And now I'm prompted to specify the next point, the second point. And I will simply come over here, hover, 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 and then come really close to that endpoint and let it snap to that endpoint. And once it snaps to that endpoint, it indicates to me that it's the endpoint, and it also has the green square. I can go ahead and click. Done. It's made a copy. But as you can see, it wants to stay in this mode, and it wants to allow me to make additional copies, but I don't need any more. So I'm going to enter to terminate my command. Done. I will now proceed to copy this line, right? The 3-foot line up to the top. Now, yes, I can draw another line. Simple and straightforward, right? I can come over here. Actually, I can right click and I can go over here to recent input, and you'll see that I have the line listed there. So I can click on line and I can simply draw a line from one endpoint to the other endpoint, and then right click, enter to terminate the command. Yes, that is possible, but I'm going to undo that because I want to practice the copy command one more time. Multiple ways to complete drawings in AutoCAD. With this exercise, I'm introducing you to commands, and then you can practice using different commands with other drawings, and you'll establish your drawing style. So I'm going to right click, recent input, copy. And now I'm prompted to select the object. So I hover over this line and I click on it. Do I wish to select any more objects? My answer is no. Therefore, I enter. Now, once I enter, I'm prompted to specify the base point. So I will use this endpoint as my base point. Click, take it up, and then click on this endpoint as my second point. And notice how it's still in the loop in case I wanted to make additional copies, multiple copies, and I don't. So I enter to terminate the command. And I now have the 6'2" by 3-foot outline of my sofa. To verify this, stay in the Home tab, go to the Utilities panel, And in the measure dropdown, click on that, and you'll see that there are a few ways to measure your objects. I will select quick. I'm going to click on it. And when I do that, you notice my cursor changes. And as I move over to my 4 lines, it's starting to give me some quick measurements. So it's indicating that it is 6'2" in that direction. And now if I take my cursor and place it inside of the rectangle, you'll notice that it's showing me the 3-foot width by the 6'2" length. And then at the 4 corners, it is showing me that they are all at right angles. That means that I've drawn this properly. Once I'm done checking that, I can go ahead and escape. And now I can proceed to the next part of the drawing. So I'll go back to my example. And let me zoom in and pan this down a little bit just to focus on that one area of the drawing. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to do is put in that backrest. And that backrest is 8 inches away. And that's my focus right now. So I'll go back to my drawing. And now what I'd like to do is actually pan and zoom in a little bit, not too much. Actually, I went too far. Let me zoom it back out. I can't seem to get it in the middle, so I guess I'll leave it right there. But I really want to zoom in. So watch this. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to type Z and enter. And instead of doing extents, there's an option, and it's called the window option. And by the way, the options that you see down at the command line, I can also use my down arrow right now, and it will list them for me right here. And I can click window from here. So I click window, and it says, okay, specify the first corner. So I basically want to say, you know what? Zoom from here, and I click one time. I move my mouse, and then I click over here because that's how far I want to zoom in. So that's another option that you have in terms of zooming. I'll add the line that's 8 inches away from the back. I could make a copy of this line and bring it over 8 inches. And you know what? I think I'll do that because I still have an opportunity to show you the offset command in just 1 second. So yes, that's what I'll do. I will go ahead and go to the Home tab, Modify Panel, Copy. So I will click on Copy. It asks me to select the objects. I select the line. Do I want to select any more objects? The answer is no. Therefore, I enter. I can now establish or specify the base point. And for the base point, I'll go ahead and click right here. I don't need to click on the object like I did before. I'm simply going to make a click right here, one click, and I still have ortho on, and I want to copy it over a distance of 8 inches. So all I have to do now is type in 8. I could put the inch mark, but AutoCAD will default to inches if I don't put anything. So I'll simply leave it at 8 and enter. And I've copied the line over 8 inches. And here we go. It's assuming that I would like to make additional copies, which I do not. So I can enter to terminate the command, or I can tap the escape key. And this time I'll tap the escape key. And that takes me out of the command, and I have my line. I can go back and measure. And right now this is set to quick measure. So I'll click on quick, and I'll just hover to double check. Shows me that it is 8 inches, and it's also showing me that I have the 90-degree angles at all 4 corners, which is what I want. And now I'll tap the escape key. Back to my drawing I go, or rather my image. And the next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to add the armrests. And the armrests are 4 inches away from the top line and the bottom line. And for this, I'm going to use a new command. So I'll go back to my drawing. And what I'd like to do is take this line and offset it. I can make a copy, but we've practiced the copy command already, and I'd like to introduce another command for you. So, Home tab, Modify Panel, and I'm coming over to this icon, which doesn't have any text next to it, and this is my Offset command. So I'm going to click on Offset, and I'm prompted to specify an offset distance. So I'm going to specify the distance, and I'm going to type 4, and I will enter. And now that it has the distance, I can go ahead and select the object that I want to offset, which is this line up here, and I click on it one time. And now it wants to know, and let me pan this a moment so you can see this. Do I want to offset it to the bottom, or do I want to offset it to the top? And the answer is I want to take it to the bottom, and it doesn't matter where I click as long as it is below the line. So I can even click way down here, and it's still going to offset at exactly 4. So I'm going to click, and the line has been offset. And I'm still in my offset command. So now I'll come down here, and I will select this line, and I will offset it up. And again, it doesn't matter where I click so long as it is above the line. So I click, and I have that offset. Now, I'm going to continue with my offset command because I want to show you something. If I go back to my example, you'll notice that my cushions are 1 foot 10 inches apart from each other. I'm already in the offset command, so why don't I just continue and modify that distance? Instead of 4 inches, I'll make it 1 foot 10. So while I am still in my offset command, I am going to click on this line, and I'd like to offset it up, but not 4 inches. I want it to be 1 foot 10 inches. So I type in 1 foot 10, just like that, and I enter. And it will change that distance for me right there on the fly. So that has been offset 1 foot 10. I'll do this on the top line. I'll click on it. It wants to default to that 4-inch value, but because that value is currently highlighted in that text box, that means I can change it. I can override it. So I'll type in 1 foot 10 and enter. That's it. I do not want to offset any more objects, so I will enter to terminate the command. Let's continue. If I look at my example, you'll notice that the lines really should be terminating right here at the edge of this line. They shouldn't continue through. So that's what I will do next. I'm going to adjust that. So I'll go back to my drawing, and I'm going to introduce another command. This one's going to be another modify command. So what I'd like to do is actually trim the segments on this side of the line. So back to my home tab, back to modify, and I come over here to trim. So I'd like to trim my objects. So I'm going to click on trim. And right away, I'm prompted to select object to trim, or or I can also do Shift Select to extend. But I want to trim, so I'll focus on that. And all I have to do is simply hover. And as I hover right here, it's already showing me the end results. If I click right now, it will trim the line. So I'll do that. I click. Done. And I can do the same and trim the other remaining lines like this. And I'm done. And I can go ahead and enter to terminate the command. Let me show you another way to do that. And it could save a little bit of time. So let me undo. I'll perform the same trim command. I'll click on trim. But this time, instead of clicking on the object, I'm actually going to click just above it right here in this empty space. And when I click on that empty space, like this, AutoCAD assumes that I would like to use what's called a fence line. And notice how if I now take my cursor and move it down like this, it's generating that fence line and wants me to identify the next point. And once I click down here at the bottom, it's going to enact that fence, and I'll click and it trims all of the lines at once. It's a really nice feature. Here, let me show you, show that to you this way. I'll click here for a moment as if I want to trim this line and this line. You see that? And if I were to click, it would actually trim them. But I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to tap the escape key and terminate the command and be done. So that's my sofa. And then to make sure that I have the dimensions correct, I'll come back over here to measure. It's my quick measure tool. So I click on it, and as I hover, you'll see it gives me the dimensions for all of these lines and how far apart they are from each other. And this is my way of just double checking to make sure that I drew it at exactly over here, the 6'2" length, which I do have. If I actually hover outside of it like this, notice how it gives me the 3 foot length, which is nice. And it says 3 foot by 6'2" on the outside. So those are correct. So this is me just double checking my drawing for accuracy and precision. And every time I go inside of these 4 lines, when I see these rectangular shapes, if it's showing me that every one of those 4 corners is at 90 degrees, then I know that I used ortho properly. And then when I'm done, I simply tap the escape key. And now I can zoom extent. So I type Z, enter, E, enter. And then I'm just going to roll my wheel mouse down one time and take a good look at this. And that's the sofa. So now that I have my 3-seat sofa, I'm going to go back to my example. I'm going to go up here. What I'd like to do is construct my 2-seat sofa based on the 3-seat sofa. And I will introduce some more commands here. You'll notice that this one says to copy, to rotate, and move. It's a modification of the 3-seater. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'll go back to my drawing and I'll take this one step at a time. I'm going to pan this over because what I'd like to do now is make a copy of the 3-seat sofa. To make a copy, I will go to the Home tab, Modify Panel, and click on Copy. Now, to select objects, initially when I went to copy, I was actually picking one line at a time. I don't want to do that because it will take up too much time. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to select all of these objects at once. So I'm going to use what's called an implied window. And I'm going to click up here away from my objects, one click. And then I'm going to move my cursor. And notice how, first of all, it is a blue shaded area, and the outline of that area is a continuous border. Anything that falls 100% inside of this implied window will be selected. Now, if I put my cursor right here, you'll notice that the three long lines, they do not fall 100% inside of the window, the implied window, so they do not get selected. So I have to make sure that I bring everything inside. So I'll go ahead and click. And that has allowed me to select all of my objects. And down in the command line, it says I have selected 9 objects. I do not want to select any more objects, so I need to enter to escape or to complete my select objects. So I enter, and now it's asking me for a base point. And the base point that I'm going to pick is just somewhere in here. It doesn't have to be anywhere specific. If you feel comfortable, you can pick an endpoint, you can pick a midpoint. I don't need to do that. I'm okay picking it right here. So I make one click, and then I just move it out here. And as you can see, ortho is still on, and that's fine. And I want to bring it out far enough because I know that I'm going to rotate it, and I want to give myself enough room. So I'm going to extend it just a little bit more, and I'm going to make the copy right here, and I'm going to click. And when I click, I'm still in this copy mode. It wants to make more copies. I'm going to enter to terminate the command. Done. So I have successfully copied my 3-seat sofa so that I can convert it to a 2-seat sofa. So that's step number 1. Step number 2, I'm going to rotate it. And I want to introduce the rotate command. So I come over here to the Home tab, Modify Panel, and I click Rotate. Once again, I'm prompted to select objects. Now, the last time I selected objects, I used an implied window. Now, I'd like to show you what's called the implied crossing window. And this time, I'm going on the opposite side, on this end, and I'm going to click one time. And now you'll notice that as I move my cursor from right to left, it is now a green shaded implied crossing window, and the outline of it is dashed. What that means is any object that simply crosses through this window will be selected. And just like that, I've selected 4 lines. And all I need to do is come straight down here, and I pick my other lines, and we're good. I just wanted you to see the difference between the implied window and implied crossing window. I will now click. I've selected my objects. Do I want to select more objects? No. So I enter. And now for the base point, it doesn't matter where I select, but this is going to be my point of rotation. So this time, I guess I will pick the midpoint here, just to be different from the last time. So I pick this midpoint, and then I move my cursor. But as I move it, notice how it's moving, it's jumping around too quick for me. So I'm going to turn ortho off for just 1 second. I'm going to come down here to show you what it's actually doing. All right, so it is allowing me to select that rotation angle. And I'd like to rotate it to this position. So I'm going to turn ortho back on, and I'm going to make sure that my cursor is down here. So I turn ortho on. My cursor is right here. I know it's going to be perfectly straight, and that's what I want. So I click, and make sure that you click away from the objects. Because if you accidentally come over here and you click there, it's actually going to pick that endpoint. You're going to get an angled rotation, and you don't want that. So stay away from your objects. And if you have to, pan down some more and just bring it down further and click. This command ends itself because there's no more to do. So I go in, rotate, and it takes me right out. So I've accomplished that much. Now I'm going to take my screen and zoom in right here and just focus on this 3-seat sofa. And I don't want to get confused with that grid. So I'm going to turn that grid off just to help me out a little bit. And there, clears things up a bit. And I'd like to now have a 2-seat sofa. And if I go back to the example, you'll see that the 2-seater, I did not provide dimensions, but know that those cushions are still 1'10" apart, and all of the other dimensions apply as well. With that in mind, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do this. My first example, or the first way I would do this is to move this line. So I'm going to come over to my Home tab, Modify Panel, click on Move. I can select this object. I will enter. I'm going to move it from this endpoint. I'm going to bring it over to this endpoint here. And you can see the 2-seater, and I want to make sure that both cushions are 1'10". So I'm going to do a quick measure here. All right, 1'10", 1'10", 4-inch armrest, 4-inch armrest. I'm good. Tap the escape key. And now all I need to do is trim. So I'll go back to the Home tab, Modify Panel, Trim. And I'm not going to trim them individually. I'm going to click right down here in an empty space, and I'm going to make one click, take it up. It's going to give me the fence. And now I click, and it has trimmed that off, and I enter. Now, it left some lines behind. All I have to do now is erase them. So here's what I do. I basically just highlight all of them. I window them like this. That highlights them. And then I just tap the delete key on my keyboard. Or I can go ahead and be very formal about it and go to my Home tab, Modify Panel, Erase. And when I click on Erase, it asks me to select the objects. I make a window, an implied window like that, and I enter. And they're gone. And that gives me the 2-seater that I wanted to have. So that's one way to do it. Let me show you another way. So in this case, I am going to stretch my lines. And I know in advance that I'm going to have a line on top of another line. So I will jump ahead and erase. So I'm going to take this line right here, and I'm going to either tap the delete key or just come over here and click on erase, and it goes away. Now I'm going to stretch. Home tab, Modify Panel, Stretch. So I click on Stretch. You'll notice in my command line, it's telling me to select objects to stretch by using a crossing window or a crossing polygon. So I have to remember a crossing window goes from right to left. If I go in the opposite direction, in the other direction, it's going to give me an implied window and it will not work. So I have to make sure to make a crossing window. So I'm going to start down here in this corner because I know that my next corner is going to be to the left, and that's what I need. So I click one time right here, and now I come over, and you can see it's an implied crossing window because it is shaded green and it has the dashed outline. So now I click. And what it has done is it's selected the lines, but it has also selected endpoints of the horizontal lines. And they're going to get stretched over in just a moment here. So I don't want to select any more objects, so I enter. And now watch this. I'm going to pick from this endpoint. I want to stretch it over to this one. And I'm doing this on purpose because I know that that is exactly 1 foot 10. So by doing that, by using my endpoint to endpoint, I guarantee that it is the correct distance. So now I click and I have my 2-seater. Double check it again, measure it, and I have the dimensions that I need to have. Tap the escape key. Now go back to my example. And you'll notice that in this case, I indicate that we can embellish the cushions with a 4-foot radius arc. So I'll show you how to put that in. So I'll go back to my drawing. And I don't need the lines here anymore. So I'm going to trim them. So I go back to trim. And I select this segment of the line, and then I select this segment like that. Okay. And notice how I didn't click right on it, so it automatically went to a fence, and I just took the line straight down so it would cross through the segment. All right, so I'll enter now. And now, again, back to my example. I just want to make sure I have this right. Embellish the cushion with a 4-foot radius arc. I will now go to my Home tab, Draw Panel, Arc. And I need an arc that will give me a radius. So I want a start point, end point radius. And this is the only one that gives me that radius option. So I'm going to start that. So I'm going to click on it. Start and radius. Rule of thumb here, and it's something I should have mentioned. When I go to draw arcs, let me just show you this real quick, like a 3-point arc. If I start here and then I pick my next point there, you'll notice how the arc wants to draw itself in a counterclockwise direction, right? Go to arc. I'll go to start and radius. And this time I'll start it here. And then I'll go to end it there. And now I'll give it the radius, and I'll type in 4 feet and enter. There we go. One more time. And you'll notice that if I just hover, it is showing me that if I click now, it will go with the start and radius option. So I'll click that. And I will start on this end over here, 1 click for my start point, 1 click for my end point. And then notice how it doesn't show me anything when I'm really close. So it's a really good idea to move that cursor out of the way. And now I type in 4 feet and enter. So now I'm going to pan and zoom, and I can see where I have my sofa, but I'd like to move it up to this location. So I'm going to move. Now, you notice that I've been going to my icons quite a bit, and that takes time. I prefer the keyboard. And a lot of these commands have what are called command aliases, which nowadays are called keyboard shortcuts. So the alias or the shortcut that I want to use is M for move. So I type M, and you notice how it pops up right away. And it shows me that that's the keyboard shortcut for move. So I type M and enter. And now I select my objects. Let me one more time review this. I'm just going to click up here. If I make one click, right? And if I take that cursor and I move it over to the right, so I go left to right, it is a window. See that? No matter which way I go. But if I go to the left, now it's a crossing window. And to be specific, it's an implied crossing window, and this is an implied window. So you decide, think ahead and say to yourself, well, all I really need is a window. So I know that I want to go from left to right. So let me go ahead and just click and finish this. It doesn't select any objects, but it keeps me in the select object mode. And now I know that I can either go from this corner down, or I can go from this corner up. As long as I'm going from left to right, I click one time, take it over. I fit everything within that implied window, and I click and I select all of my objects. You'll get the hang of it if you continue to practice. And now that I have my object selected, I enter. And now I take a base point, and I guess I'll pick this as my base point, and I'll move it up. And ortho is off. If yours is not off, go ahead and turn it off and just locate it somewhere up here. And I'm going to pan while I'm in this command and just take my sofa and just place it somewhere right here. And now if I go back to my example that I showed you, you see how it's turned a little bit, just to give it a little bit of a lived-in feel. So it's an opportunity to practice the rotate command again. So I'll rotate, but I want to show you the keyboard shortcut. So that would be R-O. R-O is the keyboard shortcut to rotate. And now I enter. And it says select the objects to rotate. I previously moved all of those objects that represent my two-seat sofa. I don't need to pick these objects again. All I have to do now is just type P for previous. So if I type P and enter, it remembers the previously selected objects. It's a little trick in AutoCAD. They're selected. You don't have to use the P. You can go ahead and just draw a window around them. So those are the objects that I want. I enter. And now for my base point, I'll pick this point right here. And then to rotate, I will just freely rotate it about that angle, either here or here. You pick it. It doesn't have to match exactly what I have. So right here, maybe just a bit. There we go. And then I'm going to pan and zoom. You notice how it has that nice look. You are more than welcome to change this 3-seat sofa and put the same 4-foot radius arcs on there if you wanted to, to make further embellishments. I'll go back to my drawing now. And I have a table, and then I have my rug to put in. What I'd like to do is, for now, I think I want to put the table in there, and then I want to proceed and show you how to print this out so you at least have that much completed. So this is going to be a 2-foot diameter round table. So I'll go back to my drawing, and I'll go over here to my circle option, my drop down, and I'd like to pick center diameter this time. So I click on center diameter, and I pick a point somewhere here, and watch, I'm going to do this on purpose, right? I'm going to accidentally pick it a little too close to the furniture there. So I'm going to click right here, and then I want to draw a 2-foot diameter. So I type in 2 feet like this and enter. And yes, it's right above the other object. And like I said, I did this on purpose because now I can move it. But I want to show you another way to move this. If I select the object, you'll notice that these blue dots, square dots appear, right? These are called grips. And a circle has grips at every one of the 4 quadrant points, and it also has it at the center there. So instead of using move, I'm going to use the grips, and I'm going to pick this center right here, and I'm going to click on it. And that will allow me to stretch the circle. Now, it sounds strange, right? How do you stretch a circle? I'm not. So it's defaulting to moving it to another location, right? So I can move it over here and click. And that's it. If you wanted to, you can actually click on this point here, this quadrant point. It shows me that it's 1 foot out. I could actually make this bigger or smaller if I wanted to, just by using the grips and then typing in a different value. But I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to show that to you, and I'll tap the escape key, and I have that. And then to remove the grips, so it's no longer active here, I can go ahead and tap the escape key again. And then I will zoom extend. So I type Z enter, E enter, and I have that. I have not finished this drawing. On your own, finish doing this sample rug, and I will show you how to do this with the polar array. Don't worry about that just yet. But go ahead and do your own rug now that you have learned how to use a few of these commands. I do want to show you how you would print this. So I'm going to come back over here and just quickly walk you through the process of printing this out. I will, first of all, zoom extents. It's very important. Before you print something out, always zoom extents. So Z enter, E enter. That way you know if anything is floating out there, you'll be able to see that. This is the extent of my drawing, and that's what I wanted to see. Next step is I want to come over here and print this out. So I'll go to my application button. I'll hover over print, and I'd like to plot. So print and plot are synonymous in AutoCAD. So I'll click on plot. And this opens up my plot window, my plot dialog box. And we're going to take this one step at a time. First of all, don't worry about page setup. We're going to jump over to printer plotter. We need to select this. And we need to output a PDF. So click on the drop down, and you're going to look for the AutoCAD PDF General Documentation option. Pick that one. This will make sure that we output a PDF. Now the paper size is going to be 8.5 by 11. That's fine. What to plot? Remember I did a zoom extents. I want to go ahead and make sure that I plot the extent of my drawing right here. Next, under plot offset, I want to center the plot. And then I want to come over here where it says plot scale. And I want you to start getting into the habit of plotting to an architectural scale. So I'm going to turn off fit to paper. And the scale, I'm going to select from this list. I'm going to click here. And it shows me a lot of different scales, but I want to come down here to my architectural scales. And I'm going to see if I select 1/2 inch equals a foot, what that does. So I'll click on it. And you'll notice in my preview, it is showing me that on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, if I print this drawing out, which I drew at actual size, if it scales down to 1/2 inch equals a foot, that's how much space it's going to take up on my sheet. So could I go a little bit bigger? I don't know. Let me see. If I change it and go to 3/4 of an inch, it still fits. So I'm going to let you decide if you want to go 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch. There's no right or wrong here. I just want to make sure that it is to an architectural scale. If you can't decide, then let's go with the bigger size and go with 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. And now what I'd like you to do is apply to the layout. That way, these settings are saved. And then the next time I come back and I want to print, everything is already set up. Oh, and I look over here at the drawing orientation and it's going to orient it to landscape. But if I click to portrait, it just changes ever so slightly. And I think I do want portrait just to make sure that, you know, my sheet of paper is 8.5 by 11, but it's not going to matter for our purposes. Now that you've done all that, and you notice I made one change here, and I can apply to layout again because I made a change. I want to make sure that I can save that. So I'll click apply to layout once again. And now I can preview this. And when I click on preview, it's going to give me this warning. It's telling me something about an annotation scale. We're not there yet, so do not concern yourself with this. Just go ahead and click continue. And what it's showing me here is an 8.5 by 11 sheet size. And it's showing me at a 3/4 inch scale what this looks like on that piece of paper. And if I want to, I can zoom in just by clicking and dragging my mouse up. I can get a better view of it. And if I like what I see, I can go ahead and just simply click on plot. But if things weren't looking right, I can go ahead and close out of my preview window and then come back in here and make changes. So you can change the scale if you wanted to, but everything looks okay. So I will proceed to go ahead and click OK. Same message again. And if any of you want to, you can always continue under these conditions and it won't show up again, but I'm going to keep mine going just for a couple more sessions. I'll go ahead and continue. It's asking me where do I want to save this file. I will go ahead and go into my HWC folder, go into my ARC 170 folder, and I will print this out to this location. You'll notice that it's adding this additional text where it says model. The reason for that is because we are in that model tab, which is model space. I want you to remove that. So basically just click out here and just backspace until it just shows your first initial, last name, and then the name of the file. Once you have that, go ahead and click on save. Tells me that it has plotted the sheet. And if I open this up in Acrobat on my computer, there it is. I'll close this preview. There's the drawing. I'll look for this on your Google Drive. And what I do is I usually come down here to this corner. And as I move closer to the corner, there we go. It tells me it did print on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And I'll be able to tell the scale. And I'll check your drawing also. I'll open up the DWG. And when I open up your DWG, you will have saved that, the settings, and I'll be able to check them. So that's how you will print it. And something I forgot to do with my drawing, and I should have been doing this on a regular basis, I should have come up here to save. And something that we say in the practice is save and save often. I should have done that. And another way to save is also use Control S, and that's typical of a lot of Windows programs. So that's the drawing saved. And I'll close out of it and I'll come back later and I will add the rug. You know, you don't have to finish it all in one sitting. You can give yourself a little bit of a break.